All right, all right. Good evening, good evening. Wait, so I can be in the full frame. All right, cool. So, listen, today's live is going to be hot. I want to do another COVID-19 update because there's a lot of misinformation. Obviously, there always is and always has been since the beginning of the pandemic. We've had a situation where the pandemic, to be honest, became a pandemic because of how poorly it was handled. So let's start with maybe I'll start with what I'm already on. I'll continue on that line, and I'm going to give some hard numbers, and then talk about why the um, why the pandemic is where it is right now, and why people are doing the whole open close situation. So, listen. Here's what happened. In November of 2019, President Trump was given information that a pandemic was impending. So, what he could have done in November of 19 is he could have started to uh, fund the research for vaccines because COVID 19 isn't a brand new virus, it's simply a new form of the virus, which is why they called it the novel coronavirus, which means that it's a new coronavirus. So there were already people who were working on vaccines. So he could have funded the vaccine. He also could have done travel restrictions because people were coming from China to the US, from the US to China, and back and forth, and all around the US, spreading the virus. He also could have done a national lockdown for a few weeks just to get people acclimated and letting them know, listen, you need to wear masks. If he had done those things, fund a vaccine, a national lockdown, and if he had actually done travel restrictions and taken the virus seriously, I'm not sure that the pandemic, even if it still become a pandemic, I'm not sure it would be as bad as it is now. And so now I'm going to start with some of the numbers that will give you an idea of why things are so bad. Look, the total, I'll start with deaths first. The total number of deaths worldwide is 2 million. It's just over 2 million, but let's say 2 million. So the total number of deaths worldwide is 2,420,000 of them are in the US. So almost one quarter of the world's deaths, total deaths, are in the United States. That should really, really be freaking people out. Let's talk about infections. 25 million infections worldwide. No, I'm sorry, in the US, 99 million worldwide. So again, one fourth. 99 million infections worldwide, 25 million of them are right here in the US. Think about that. Is that a conspiracy theory too? I know that people who just aren't very smart are going to imply that it's part of some great conspiracy or connected to something that doesn't make any damn sense. But it is what it is, and I'll talk about why in a minute, why it makes sense that that happened. So if we're saying that one quarter of the deaths, roughly one quarter of the deaths total in the world, and one quarter of the infections in the world are in the US, then there's something going on in this country that has made that so. Conspiracy theories be damned. Let's talk about what we know. These are things that I'm pretty sure we can agree on that make sense as far as why our infection rate went up. Number one, because in the US, we've got this fake false sense of freedom. We think everything is about freedom. It's a free country. Everything's free. So I could do what I want. Free, free, free. So we never had a national lockdown. And even the states who could, because the states knew that they had to actually take over since Trump was such a bonehead. and wasn't doing anything. He kept saying, oh, it's a hoax. It's a hoax. And so I want to make it clear, a lot of you hate Trump, but you're as stupid as he is when you start to say stupid stuff like, it's a hoax, it's not real, they're doing this, they're doing that. Yeah, you and Trump, buddy. You and Trump. So this fake freedom that Americans thought they had. I don't need to wear a mask. I can go to a restaurant if I want to. I don't have to wear a mask if I go in a store, if I get in an Uber, if I get on the bus, if I'm getting on a plane, I can do what I want. So you have all of these ignorant assholes who were doing what they wanted, flying from state to state. So the first hot spot was Florida. So Florida was hot, New York was hot. Instead of locking those states down so that people couldn't fly out, and locking down other states so the people from those hot spots couldn't come into other states, people were just flying freely about the country. I don't know what airline that is. I think it's JetBlue. Feel free to fly free about the country. And so that's a problem. That's one of the things happened too. So the fake sense of freedom, stupid people who didn't want to comply because they thought that, they can do whatever they want because they're free. Also, and this is what we're seeing now, the love of money above humanity. People right now, there's this whole argument, where people are saying, open the states, open everything back up because people need to make money, businesses need to thrive. And I get that, I understand it, but you can't put that above people's lives because you hear people say, oh, the death rate is low. Well, and I covered that before. The death rate is only appearing as a low number because it is a small percentage of an ever growing number. The death rate is a percentage of the people who have been infected, right? But since the infection rate is continuing to grow day by day, then that death rate is going to continue to appear smaller than it really is. But I'll go back and emphasize the main reason why we're in trouble is because we had no national leadership. So let's go then to what people are saying now, and there's stupid ass memes being passed all over the internet by stupid ass people who are trying to say, oh yeah, Biden gets inaugurated on the 20th, and oh my God, all these states are going to open up now. See, it's political. Well, that doesn't make sense for a number of reasons, and I'm going to go through some of the states and give you some statuses which states are open, which ones are closed, which ones are unchanged, and we'll talk about a couple of them, especially California, since I live here, and talk about why this moron wants to reopen California. So the reason why it doesn't make sense that there's some kind of political conspiracy is because Biden actually plans to do a national lockdown. So if he plans to do a national lockdown, why would states who are Democrat led, then say Biden's elected, let's open up? Here's what's more likely, and then I'll tell you what it really is. What is more likely, if you want to follow that theory, what would be more likely is that they say, let's open up now because in a minute he's going to close everything down. But that's just not the case. Here's what's really happening. Before Biden was inaugurated, remember, a lot of states implemented some really stringent restrictions. In addition, several vaccines have started to roll out. The restrictions plus the vaccines have given us a shrinking of the infection rate, which has given us, I believe, a false sense of security. But the infection rates are shrinking. Because the infection rates are shrinking, people are taking that to mean, okay, cool, now we can reopen. But here's what's going to happen. In every state that decides to reopen or ease the actual restrictions, what's going to end up happening is that infection rate's going to go back through the roof. Because that's what we've been doing for the past year. Let's talk about California. Newsom is a moron because look, he did the restrictions early on. He looked like, he was being responsible and smart, so he locked everything down, but then he opened it back up. He said, oh, yeah, they need to make money. So he opened everything up. Then he locked it back down. Then he opened it back up. Then he locked it back down. I'm like, dude, stop doing that. Because if you continue, it's like having a real deep sickness and they tell you not to go outside. You're sick, you feel better, so you go outside. Then you get sick again, so you go back inside. Then you feel better, then you go back outside. Then you get sick again, so you come back inside. So that's what we're dealing with. What needs to happen is that we don't need to just have restrictions, see the infection rate get lower, and then take away the restrictions. That's pretty stupid. What needs to happen is that we have to have restrictions long enough to make a huge difference. And what that means is that I support Biden, and I hope he does it because, I have some issues with Democrats who make a lot of promises and then they just bitch up. They just get weak and say, oh, I'm not going to do that. He said, one of the doctors on his team, as soon as he was elected, said, as soon as Biden gets in office, we're going to implement a national lockdown for 4 to 6 weeks. I believe if we have a national lockdown for 4 to 6 weeks, in addition to continuing to roll out the vaccines that have shown the most promise, then we can really beat back the infection rate and beat it low enough where it'll start to make sense for states to reopen, for restrictions to ease. But let's talk about some of the states. So this is since the 1st of January of 2021. Restrictions were tightened in Oklahoma, New Mexico, Maryland, Virginia, New York, New Hampshire, Nevada, Wisconsin, West Virginia, and I can't read my own. And Washington, state of Washington. So those were the states that like tightened up restrictions. The states that were easing up restrictions were Utah, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Oregon, Rhode Island, North Dakota, Vermont, and Hawaii. Yeah, and so these were states who, and also Nebraska. These were states who decided we're going to ease up and kind of make things a little lighter. Some of the states that were unchanged, that just kind of left things where they were: Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, Ohio, South Dakota, and Georgia. So I didn't bother to outline which states are blue and which ones are red, because that's really not what it's about. It's not about Republican and Democrat. These states aren't really along just a simple Republican slash Democratic lines. These are states where the governors are making their own decisions based on what's going on in their state. And because most states did implement some kind of restrictions over the last month to 2 months, the infection rate did start to shrink. But we have to be careful with that, because a shrinking infection rate doesn't mean that the virus is gone. It doesn't mean that it will continue to shrink, because as I said earlier, as soon as you open things back up, then the infection rate is going to go through the roof. Now, people who are talking about businesses, again, I get it. If you're in business and you don't want your business to tank, you want to be able to have people come into your business. I get that. But if we can't, we're a society. We're not just a group of people over in the corner here and a group of people in the corner over here. Whatever happens in your state, in your city, it affects what's happening nationwide. So we have to be careful with saying, let's just do this or let's just do that, because that's you in your own area. And then the reality of it is, most people don't even know what the infection rate is, what the death rate is, what restrictions are in place, what those restrictions are going to do. You just get a bunch of stupid assholes who just run out and say, you got to do this and you got to do that because I want my business to be able to thrive. And that's just sad. Now, what I've seen, and this is just, it is what it is. What I've seen is I've seen a lot of businesses adapt. People have gone into new lines of business. People have begun to do business differently. And let me say, as an entrepreneur myself, my business has suffered. But you don't see me whining on social media or when I do live and say, "Oh man, my business is suffering. They got to open things back up." No, I'm trying to flip it and do something different because I'm just what it look. I support whatever restrictions, whatever plan that has to be in place in order for us to actually beat the virus back so that we can get to a place where we can safely open up for good. Now, that to me is smart. And the people who I think, who are on that program, including the new administration, I think they're smart and I want to follow them. The people who are just emotional with the knee jerk reaction, who want to be able to say, just open it up and whatever the consequences are, to hell with it. I think you're irresponsible assholes. And that's just what it is. Because, listen, let me go over some of those numbers again. The US is a huge problem. And it's a huge problem because we have people who think that we can just do whatever we want to and not pay attention to the virus. Nearly 25% of all deaths, nearly 25% of all infections are here in this nation. Now, we're supposed to be the land of the free, the home of the brave, but we're not. I think we're the land of a bunch of assholes and the home of a bunch of cowards. Because you are a coward if you think that, or if you are asserting that we should open up because you don't want to be harmed. That's cowardly, and you're a coward because you're afraid to face the absolute truth that this is a pandemic and nothing like this has existed in 100 years, which means that we have to do some things that we haven't done in 100 years and do some things that we've never done in our lifetime. I think there's probably like 3 people alive right now who went through the first pandemic and they were children. So what has to happen is that we have to be brave. Let's be the land of the free and the home of the brave. Let's be brave and hunker down. Let's get, pressure our politicians to do some real relief for businesses, particularly for small businesses. Let's get them to do some real relief for the taxpayers, because that's our money anyway. And it's not like, look, it's not like we're on the gold standard. So I think the Republicans who are saying that they don't want to spend, I think they're a bunch of assholes and demons because we're not on the gold standard. We're just printing money anyway. We're just printing money. We went off the gold standard, and what that means for the cheap seats is that our money, it's not worth anything anyway. It's only worth whatever we say it's worth. And when we do the whole currency exchange worldwide, these are just people agreeing what it's worth. And they're based on some principles that are sound as far as what it's worth. But the bottom line is that it's not based on the gold standard anymore. We're just printing money. So print some goddamn money and make sure that the citizens are taken care of, because other nations, including Canada, people are doing it. People are getting monthly stipends. People are getting eviction moratoriums. They're getting relief from getting their mortgages foreclosed. These are the things that make sense. And if you're a businessman, these are the things that, or a businesswoman, these are the things that you need to be concerned about. You should be talking about the humanity, because if we open and more people continue to die, more people are going to continue to be unemployed. And if they're not getting relief from the government because you assholes don't want to have restrictions in place, then they're not going to be able to spend money, come to your business and support your business. It all goes together. So what has to happen is that, again, and I hope Biden finds his nuts and actually does what he says he was going to do, because I know people aren't going to be happy, and you might have to call out the militia. So, for example, here in California, every time the governor institutes or implements some restrictions, those bastards in Orange County decide they're going to do what they want to do. And the governor says nothing. They're like, yeah, you guys are doing restrictions. We don't give a damn. We're just going to party and bullshit and hang out and do whatever we want to do. And I think that he should send the militia down there and whoop some ass. He should be, the mayors of those cities who are doing what they want to do, shut them down, whoop their ass, put the militia on the streets, because you can do that. The governor does have the power to do that. And so I hope that Biden finds his nuts, and I hope that he actually does the 4 to 6 week lockdown, because the 4 to 6 week lockdown, together with some serious restrictions, and then rolling out those vaccines, I think we can put a dent in this virus, because I don't see any other way. And here's the problem that I have, which is why I call people assholes, because people are calling for everything to open back up, but they have no plan. They have no understanding of what this virus is doing, what the numbers are, what they have no understanding of what's going on in other countries where people are actually really opening back up. Like, do you know what's happening in New Zealand? How did New Zealand open back up? How did some of these countries who opened back up, who beat the virus back, how did they do it? Because they didn't do it by just opening everything up. There's no fucking herd immunity. Stop saying that, because you sound stupid as hell. You don't get herd immunity from a virus like this. And what you see, instead of herd immunity, you see that it starts to vary itself. It starts to adapt, because stupid people in stupid countries decided they wanted to just keep rolling out there. So the virus, since it didn't get beat back, it started to adapt. And that's why we have to have, because we are a society, we have to have leadership. And what does that mean? That means that our president, because we didn't have a president before, we had an idiot orange child who was just, this tangerine kid who was just out there just rolling out, doing whatever the hell he wanted to do, and consequences be damned. So we need national leadership, and that's why I'm hoping that that's what Biden, Harris become. I hope they become national leaders and really look. They've got control of the House. They got the House majority. They got the Senate majority, and they've got the executive branch, because they have president and vice president. So there are no excuses, And Joe can issue some executive orders. So look, again, I'm gonna go over those numbers one more time and just kind of give you an idea of how ugly this situation is in this country, and why in this country we really need some serious action that is across the board. Stop letting the governors do it. The president needs to be presidential, take the lead, and shut everything down. Whoever whines about it, to hell with them. 99 million cases of COVID-19 worldwide. 25 million are in this country. One quarter of them. 2 million COVID deaths worldwide. 420,000 are in the US, nearly a quarter. So we're accounting for 25% of the deaths, 25% of the actual infections. And we're just chilling, saying, oh, just open everything back up. It'll get worse. You're going to ruin everything. I don't think people understand, and I'm going to say this so I can scare the shit out of you morons who think that it's no big deal, who think it's a conspiracy. We can have 50% of this nation either dead or debilitated. The next time I do a COVID update, I'm going to research and get the numbers from the 1918 pandemic, because I don't think people understand how bad it was then. And then people took real action. They got to the point where they started shooting people. You don't have a mask? Boom. You don't want to stay at home? Boom. I don't know that we shouldn't do it now. I'm just saying. When you have people who are deciding they're not going to wear a mask, and they're not going to stay at home, you got to do something. You got to kick some ass. And otherwise, let me go back to where I was going a minute ago. Otherwise, this thing can get ugly. There can be a lot of people dying, a lot of people. And look, even if you survive, so don't just talk about the death rate. Even if you survive COVID, some people have heart damage forever, lung damage forever, other organs damaged forever. It's not just people dying, which is already bad. It's lives that are changed, right? It's really, really, this is a serious situation. I almost said, with my sorority, sister sorority, the AKAs, I'm an alpha man, the AKAs, that what I still say, this is a serious matter. And I think, people need to understand this is a serious matter. This is not a game. Stop pretending it's a game. Lives are being changed, lives are being lost. And just because people want a business to survive or any business, that is not enough to keep putting people at risk. So here's all the things that I think, and some of it our president agrees with, some of it some they haven't mentioned, but these are all the things I'm going to end on with my suggestions. These are all the things that need to happen in order for us to really, really beat back COVID-19. First and foremost, you people got to wear your masks. It really does make a difference. You got to keep 6 feet away from each other. So having parties of 50 people where nobody's wearing a mask, that's a COVID soup. That's Corona soup. So masks, 6 feet, and here, look, this isn't something that people just made up this year. In 1918, people were wearing masks and social distancing. So it didn't just happen 5 seconds ago. It didn't just happen last year because of the conspiracy, spooky theory, whatever you think. So that's, number one. Number two, we got to do some travel restrictions. And what that means is that if there's a country that has a high infection rate, don't let anybody come in from that country, period. Period. And here within the states, if there is a state that is high on the list, has a high, because California right now is the epicenter. If, California, we shouldn't be allowed to fly to other states. So, if you have a state, that is lifting restrictions because the infection rate is pretty low and they're doing well, don't let these I was about to call them. Don't let these motherfuckers from California fly to that state. So we got to have some travel restrictions. Just you can't be free to move about the country. The third thing that we need, and Biden promised this, and I hope he delivers and doesn't become a coward and decide not to fight for it. We need a national lockdown, 4 to 6 weeks. We need to, for 4 to 6 weeks, just shut it all down so that we can have a situation where people can start to recover, people can start to quarantine, and we can beat the virus back. Now, my next one, before I get to the next one, if you're listening on Facebook, please like and share. Like it, like it, like it, and share. If you're listening on YouTube, if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe and hit the notifications bell so that you'll be notified when I'm going live. Next on the list for beating COVID is the vaccines. I'm glad that there are a number of them. I know people think, people are still saying, oh, they're going to put the chip in it. They're going to, look, you got one of these, then they can track you. They don't need a chip. You got a chip. So people are still saying all of this spooky, weird shit. And I'm not even like saying, hey, you must get it, don't get it. I'm saying do your due diligence. I'm at the point now I'm leaning towards getting it. And that means that I would get it for myself and for my son. And so I'll do another show and I'll talk about the research I've done and everything that I've looked at and the doctors I've listened to come to that point where I actually feel more comfortable now. But that, again, that's number 4 on the list of things. And this is not in order. This is in order of importance, just all of these things. Vaccines, those are the things, masks and 6 feet of social distance, travel restrictions, a national lockdown, and vaccines. Let's be honest. People are saying it now. Fauci said it. Biden even said it. And I know a lot of you love Biden, so I don't know why you're not listening to him. I don't like his ass, but I'm listening to some of the things he's saying because they make sense. That's called discernment. Even though I don't like him, I did the same thing with Trump, although he didn't really say anything that I thought made sense. But if he did, I would have listened to him, even though I thought he was a completely evil bastard. But so with Biden, a lot of you people follow him. You should follow some of the things that he says. And one of the things he says is that there's a lot of pain that we're in store for. It's going to get worse before it gets better. There's no panacea, one thing. There are a number of magic bullets, not just one magic bullet that's going to just cure this thing. There's no magic wand that's going to make it go away. But what we have to make sure that we're doing as a people is we have to know that we're a society. We have to act as a society. I think that was the biggest thing that most of us disliked about Trump and those ignorant bags of shit who followed him. There were a lot of anarchists, and that doesn't work in a country. That's why Black people were demanding tangibles, because we're part of this country, we're part of this society, and that means there's certain things that we have to do. So we can't be anarchists during a pandemic. We have to operate as a society, and that means that whatever restrictions are necessary, whatever vaccine, whatever treatments that come about, because that'll be next out. After the vaccines, we'll get more and better treatments. So these are these are things that are necessary, and they're necessary as a society. So again, people, if you're advocating for people to just reopen, if you're out here passing these stupid ass memes around, you probably need your ass whipped. Do some research. Look, you have facebook.com right there in that window. Open up that window and type in google.com. Can you at least do that? Because if you at least get some real information, a broad base of information, then you can have some real discussions and make some real recommendations. So I hope that I've helped inform some people today. I know some people are just so goddamn stupid that Jesus Christ could come down and shine a magic light over their head and tell them something, and they'll go, "Oh, thank you, Jesus," and 5 minutes later, "Oh, that was bullshit," and they go to church every Sunday. So anyway, I hope I've given people not only some good information, but a decent perspective, so that you can think about this from a different viewpoint and not just be so knee jerk and stop passing around stupid ass memes. Some of them, are funny. When you pass around funny memes like that Bernie situation, that shit was hilarious. But passing around memes about COVID that's really tacitly giving people advice or bad information, it's not only stupid, it's dangerous. So anyway, got some good lives coming up this week. I'm going to do one for the ladies called How Black Men Love, so that you guys can stop discussing with just ladies talking about what black men want and what black men think. And I'm going to do that with my friend Roy Rice, who is a hot ass comedian who's got a show right now. I'm going to promote that show shamelessly, do some shameless plugs, because he's doing his thing and making moves. I'm also going to do a show on credit this week with my brother and fellow author, Preston James, and we'll talk about the basics. We'll do a series because he'll come back a number of times, but we're going to cover the basics on credit, and you can ask some questions, because we'll be live. You can type them in the chat. So anyway, like this and share it. Please like it and share it. And then and that's funny to me, because we're talking a lot of these people who are running their filthy mouths about, oh, we got a business, have to do this, businesses. Well, I run a business, and some of you same assholes who are talking about how you want businesses to thrive, you don't like and share anything I do. I post about my publishing company. I post about shirts and things that I sell, my books, and you don't buy them. You don't share them. So you should shut your ass up because you're really full of shit. All right, peace. I'll probably do another live tomorrow. I'll see you guys next time. This is Darryl James, and this has been The Bridge.